Welcome to the show. You're watching the Fox Business Network. We bring back to the show, look who's here, House Foreign Affairs Congressman Darrell, Issa, economist David Bahnsen, author of the hot new book, There's No Free Lunch, 250 Economic Truths. First to you, Congressman, I want to thank you for your service on this Veterans Day. What do you make of climate czar John Kerry's conflict of interest?
Well, it's just that. You know, his wife is more than wealthy enough. The family has more than enough money. And we even have a special ability for them to have a tax-free event if they would divest themselves of their conflicted holdings. So there's no excuse at all, except that they simply don't care about human rights. They don't care about slave labor. They only care about returns, in spite of him, you know, when he was in Congress, being one of the richest senators because of his wife's incredible wealth.
So this Chinese fund that he has invested $1 million in, David, it backs Chinese companies using slave labor to make solar panels. That's been an issue right now for the climate agenda, right?
Yeah, and in fact, I thought it was almost amusing that today there was supposedly this joint announcement from U.S. and China sort of promising that they're going to super duper mean it this time, that they're going to work on global warming reduction. We're formulating an entire national climate program around an alleged cooperation with China. And this is something that has never played out. We're punishing American economic activity. China has a free pass.
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear on that. To David's point, Congressman, Republican Senator Marco Rubio and Representative Chris Smith wrote a letter to President Biden about Kerry's conflict of interest earlier in the week. Okay, and the other thing, too, is, as David is talking about, John Kerry is okay with wiping out more than 11 million American jobs in the U.S. oil and gas and coal industry. But, Congressman, I like your reaction to John Kerry, caught on camera at the UN Climate Summit, brushing aside a question about his conflicts of interest. Watch this.
How, in the several months of meetings behind the scenes with China, did you bring up some of those very contentious issues, such as the use of forced labor in Xinjiang for building solar panels? How did you address it, and how did you kind of overcome that in reaching this final?
Well, we're honest. We're honest about the differences, and we certainly know what they are, and we've articulated them. But that's not my lane here. That's my job is to be the climate guy.
Congressman, he keeps using the same line, it's not my lane. He used it in testimony before Congress in May when he was asked about China's oppression of the Muslim Uyghurs and using their slave labor to make green products. That's not my lane. While he's lobbying Congress to stop any Chinese products that come in, including things like solar panels made with prison camp labor?
Well, the important thing is it wasn't his lane, apparently, when he was the secretary either. He has a terrible history on any kind of talking tough or being tough with countries that have huge human rights violations, China being first among them. But let's understand, in the lane that he says he has, he's failing. The coal production, coal use, burning of coal in China is going up dramatically this year. So at a time when they flipped us off as far as actually doing anything about climate, he's talking like he's talking tough on his lane. He's not talking tough on his lane. China is going to increase their carbon footprint dramatically this year, much of it from coal. Well, he, in fact, is trying to shut down even our natural gas, one of our cleanest fuels, one that actually was the reason the United States was lowering its carbon footprint. So he's wrong in his lane, not just on those items that are, quote, outside his lane.
You know, Congressman, I'll ask this of you, too, and also to David Bahnsen. Should John Kerry testify before Congress and say, here's what I'm doing, here's what I struck in the deals at the climate conference, here's my conflicts of interest? I mean, we have the Pentagon spokesman saying climate change is equally as important as China, David, right? But they have John Kerry lobbying in the halls of Congress saying, Congress, don't do anything affecting China. We need a climate deal. What do you say, David?
I would like him to come before Congress and have the right people ask him, how much natural gas did you get China to agree to buy from U.S. exports? How much natural gas production have you got the White House to agree to increase? Okay, because apart from the talk of conflicts and scandal and those things, just down to base policy, Liz, We have, and the congressman said it a moment ago, we have the cleanest emitting fuel right here in the United States that we can produce here and use here and generate electricity here, and we can export it and get them to buy it at a significant profit to us and at a great deal to them. So it kills two birds with one stone. If someone called me the climate czar, that's the only thing I'd be working on.
We hear you. You know, I want to stay in this conflict of interest because this investment fund, Congressman, that John Kerry invests in, it also has invested in surveillance technology to do facial recognition of minorities China's government is oppressing. We've got border protection seizing imports from that Chinese company Kerry's fund reportedly backs, because the products like these solar panels made with slave labor, it's blacklisted. But he's reportedly lobbying against product bans from China. Senator Ben Sasse, he's against all of what John Kerry's doing, saying he wants all of us to have a moral backbone as weak as a souffle. What do you say?
Well, you know, look, this is from an administration where nobody airplane pooled going to Scotland. The fact is, they want to have a whole bunch of rules they don't play by. One of the most essential ones for a member of the cabinet or equivalent, including these czars, is to divest conflicts of interest. He's chosen not to do that. And of course, when they say it's more than $1 million, it could be a lot more than $1 million. In this fund alone. So it is substantial. It is certainly an example of his saying to do one thing while doing another. At the end of the day, if we are going to be buying from human rights violations, actual slave labor, then we're counterproductive. And oh, by the way, India and China both have basically told us they're going to use more coal because they can't afford to buy natural gas. The fact is, they don't want to use our natural gas, and they really don't care about climate change. They just want us to drive up the cost of our energy if they can, because that makes them more competitive. It's true of China, it's true of India. The difference is India is a democracy and China is a dictatorship that enslaves its own people.
Congressman Darrell, Issa, thank you again for your service to our country. And David Bahnsen, good luck on your new book. You're a great writer. It's good to have you on, too.